Hello, and welcome to Replay Value. Late last month, I was invited to join Anitube Anthology number 4, focused on the works of Isao Takahata, a talented director who passed away this April, and was assigned only yesterday, Studio Ghibli's 1991 character drama. You can watch my contribution to the anthology, a discussion of visual design and color, in part 3 of the tribute, link in the description if you'd like to watch it before my discussion here, and again at the end of this video if instead you'd like to watch it afterwards. Only Yesterday at its core is about the journey of this woman, Taiko, as she leaves behind Tokyo to visit the countryside and work in the fields. This is interspliced with memories of Taiko's past, which we won't be talking about so much here, but I do go into depth in the anthology. One of the things that stuck with me after watching Only Yesterday was how modes of transportation utilized and created space, and how space, perhaps unsurprisingly, was so important to the themes of Only Yesterday. I say unsurprisingly because just from a pure conceptual level, space plays a big part in how we understand urban life versus rural life. Urban life is traditionally understood as being more compressed, surrounded by thousands and thousands of people who are little more than flickers in day-to-day life. And cities are generally built tall, with apartments instead of houses. Rural life, on the other hand, is marked by its wide open spaces, with fewer people but significantly more repeated interaction, and sprawling land that goes for width over height. And houses, generally large houses. The type of work being done is also very different. Farming versus office jobs, and the role those play in the larger context of society speaks to this divide as well. Of course, I've just used very stereotypical understandings, but in fairness, Only Yesterday plays into those tropes pretty heavily. Taiko's apartment is shown to be cozy, and she walks by tons of people in the city but only has one notable interaction. Her two conversations in the present are her brief chat with her boss and her phone call with her sister. Compare that to the sprawling landscapes of the rural countryside, the fact that everyone knows each other, and the lengthy conversation that Taiko has with Toshio literally right off the bat upon arriving. But we'll chat more about Taiko and Toshio's conversations in a minute, because before we talk about transportation in a rural setting, we should talk about the train ride to that rural setting. The sleeper train that Taiko takes creates this sense of isolation that's really fascinating and speaks to the experience that Only Yesterday attempts to get across about Taiko's urban life. Despite the fact that we see a lot of people get on the same train and even the same car as her, once the train departs the station, Taiko is the only person we see, besides her 10-year-old self or other flashes of the past. She's surrounded by tons of people, but her only company on this trip is her memories. The fact that this close proximity exists, but that it has no meaning or tangible effect on her, is exactly what Only Yesterday wants to highlight. The sleeper train is a microcosm of her life in the city, or at least the parts were shown. Her bed is like her apartment, and the way the curtain is drawn, it creates this striking image of her alone, and not in a cozy way like her apartment, but in a cold way. It serves as a contrast to the lack of human interaction in the present compared to all of her engagements with her classmates in the scenes taking place in the past. But on the other hand, the car that Taiko gets into upon arriving to her destination is the exact opposite. She's in close proximity to Toshio, and the conversation they have is meaningful, providing a lot of insights into both characters, and is the first example of in-person human connection that Taiko has had since talking with her boss in the first minute of the film. They even talk about the difference between rural and urban life in the car ride, talking about the nature of work in both contexts. The car ride also highlights the expanse of rural life, as it takes plenty of time and shows us the landscapes as they make their way to the fields. This is a shared experience, whereas the train ride is a solitary one. And that further goes to highlight this societal distinction between urban and rural life, even before Taiko gets into the field and deepens that thematic element with all of her conversations and engagements. It's unsurprising that the later car ride brings the two even closer together emotionally, just as it does physically. Despite how dark and grim things are, the car still gives off a sense of warmth because of the interaction between the two, something that the sleeper train never had, even with all of its blankets. The final train has a similar vibe. As she's saying goodbye, an old guy kinda rudely breaks it up without acknowledging any of them. Taiko sits back to back with him, but she pretty quickly gets up and moves, building space between the two and thematically reaffirming that trains are isolating in comparison to cars. Her memories are what join her in the train car and convince her to head back. The human connection she's built up in the countryside is powerful enough for her to leave her life in Tokyo behind. And therefore it's unsurprising that the final shot of Taiko is that of her in the car with Toshio. It's the contrast of her urban life and isolation with one of intense closeness in her rural one. Only Yesterday's use of space in general, but especially in modes of transportation, is able to explore that idea visually, which is certainly one of this film's greatest strengths. Hope you enjoyed. Leave a like and comment with your thoughts, subscribe for more videos, and follow me on Twitter for my live analyses and future projects. Link in the description. We'll be back real soon with another video, but until then, thanks for watching.